Today's show is it about dog poo poo at your front door of your apartment building when you step out and then you see dog poo poo? Or is it somebody that went to the washroom at your front door? Wow, that is going to be a discussion for today. Or is it about your management that doesn't want to deal with tenants who are making a lot of noise, but hey, you can move to another unit or another building at a higher rent? Or is it about government not communicating with their citizens of their province for rate increases, no less than poverty level? Or is it about transit, not having accessible transit in your area where you can't get to and from your store or your local business that you need to go to? Or is it going to be about not being able to deal with an Instacart and having the delivery driver screw up your order, and then you got to go back to your store, and then you got to go and rebuy it or pay more fees, more fees? Is it all about communication, people? Really? Really? Yeah. Well, you know what? Stay tuned because we're going to dive into a lot of different topics. Thanks. Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to PWD Allies podcast. My name is Brent Frain. I'm the host. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out the podcast on your favorite app, wherever you find it best suited for you. Today's show is all about Rant and Rave. It's part 3, and Brent's going to be just ranting away about things that are bugging him in his life. And also, hearing echoes from the disability community across our beautiful country. Economically, things are not going good, folks. Government can say one thing, but reality is people are living through a lot of pain and suffering economically, financially, not being able to have enough money to basically get by. Is it basic income that we need? Well, we're going to be talking a lot about that too. Just diving into a little bit, but there's so many different topics that we're going to dive into. If you want to hear more about basic income stuff, I really, really encourage you to check back on some of the podcasts that we've had, and other YouTube versions of the video segments of guests that we've had on talking about basic income. Do I see a horizon in the future of that? Oh, most definitely, most definitely. But with that being said, I'm going to pass you over to my editor-producer, Neil Matheson here. And he's going to start off the show, and then I will continue after. Hello, Neil.
Hi. Well, there's a couple of things I just wanted to start off the show with, Brent. First thing is, because we are on our year 3 now, it's 2025. We've just sort of started year 3. So there's a couple things to say about that. Is right at the beginning of the year, it's always hard to get guests because I think, it's still kind of that after Christmas funk, where you're really trying hard to get guests, and it's just like everybody's still on that, after Christmas funk where it's really hard to get guests. But having said that, I've been trying real hard behind the scenes, and I know you've been trying really hard behind the scenes, and we're going to have some really great guests coming up. The next one coming up is Cheryl Hardcastle on the 17th. So great to get her on again. We're probably going to get Tara Armstrong on, and she's the new MLA from Kelowna for the BC Conservatives. She's the new she's the new shadow minister for people with disabilities. She's doing the role that Dan Davies used to do. So it'll be really good to get her on. And I just got I just got an email just before we got on. I didn't even tell you yet. I just got an email from Pierre Poilievre's office saying, because I sent an invite to him, and he says I got an email back saying just to let you know we've received your invite. So I don't know where that's gonna go, but I just wanted to let the listeners know that because this is year 3, I'm shooting for the stars. Like I'm going after the big guns this year. Like, you know, the big fish.
The big fish, yes.
And I don't care if we get turned down like 12 times, 20 times, whatever. I'm gonna
keep on trying.
I'm gonna keep going after the big fish this year, and
awesome.
You know that includes Michael Bublé and all, you know, everything. I'm just going like full tilt, you know, all the way.
Oh yeah.
I'm not taking no for an answer this year. Anyway, so having said that, I mean, I enjoyed listening to your little intro, but what's interesting is you know, when we do these kind of shows, like we always kind of research these shows. Like I kind of research things that I know I want to talk about. I know you do the same thing. But when we do a show like this, you're like, let's just do a show, and like it was kind of last minute. And when we do one like this, we kind of both don't know what we're going to be talking about. And just before we launch the show, I kind of let you know, like, there was that old show, At the Movies, you know, Siskel and Ebert at the movies, and I'm going to show my age, I guess, because maybe people don't remember Siskel and Ebert, but they were movie critics, the two of them, and sometimes they would sit together and sometimes they wouldn't when they watched the movie, but they would never discuss the movie after. They would leave the discussion for the actual show, for the taping, and so this is kind of what this is. And I noticed, like, everything you talked about at the beginning of the show there is all good, but I realized that nothing that you said is what actually I want to talk about. so
yeah.
I mean, not to say that what you said wasn't great, but it's just interesting that I had a totally different idea of what I want to talk about. So anyway, so let's
that makes it very interesting.
let's start the show with that in mind.
Well, for sure. That makes it very intriguing. It keeps people on suspense, saying, what is Brent going to talk about? Is he going to do a mic drop?
Yeah.
You know, because it's unknown, right? Sometimes I'll say things off and you're, whoa, hang on. I didn't know you were going to say that. Yeah. I try to keep things into perspective. And you're right. Neil, I do a little bit of research here and there on different topics that that I'm going to talk about, kind of unexpected things that will come up. When I started my intro here, kind of a sneak peek, and those are some of the topics like I'm going to dive into, like when I mentioned dog poo poo at the doorstep, or is it somebody went to the washroom at the doorstep? In reality, that did happen, folks. It's disgusting for sure. Has it been cleaned up? No, it hasn't. Now, with the management company that I rent from, one of their other properties, they actually had that happen. They actually had that happen at the front door. It happened at our front door. I mean, it's drying up, but it hasn't been cleaned up. So there's a spot where you can still walk around it. Still, it's unnerving. It shouldn't be happening. Why is it happening? I don't know. Why? I mean, there's a lot of underlying reasons. Is it a dog went to the washroom? Well, there's no dogs allowed, no pets allowed in this building, for one thing. Did somebody just deliberately walk their dog to their door and say, hey, go to the washroom there, or clean it up? I mean, just clean it up. I mean, if somebody went to the washroom, well, then management, send your cleaners by, clean it up, right? I mean, don't just leave it. Be responsible. I mean, come on. So that I'm going to leave that topic to rest on that. But it blends into corporate landlords about rent. So I'm not going to take too much time on each topic. I'm just going to dive into my rant and rave on each topic that's bugging me.
Kind of like a rapid fire.
Your amplifier, part 3.
Rapid fire, yeah.
Rapid fire, yes. And I'm going to go rampant and a rapid fire. And this is a continuation from 2024 and beyond, but now we're in 2025, and it's a continuation because I'm dealing with myself and Sonia. We're dealing with some very, very irritating tenants that live above us. Right, we live in a building that have very, very thin buffer in between the flooring, so hollow floor, like laminate flooring, old laminate flooring that creaks. So every time you walk around, it's like in the hallway. You can hear it too, but in our unit, it's really bad, like really, really bad. So if they drop something from above, it echoes down to us like big time. Like, so it'll amplify like at least 10 times higher the decibel point. And so I ran into the tenants one day, and they said Happy New Year, and I didn't really want to say Happy New Year because I was irritated. But I thought to myself, you know what, Brent, don't stoop to their level. Just say Happy New Year in return. I mean, so life's too short. So I said, you know what, Happy New Year. And they're like, I was tongue tied. I was like, well, what do I say to them? So they said, how are you? And I said, I'm fine. I was kind of very sharp with my response. And it's like, do we make a lot of noise? And I said, yes, you do make a lot of noise. I said, do we make a lot of noise? Yes, you do make a lot of noise. Oh, we make a lot of noise. I said, do you know why we make a lot of noise? Normally we don't, but we're only retaliating because you guys are causing us a lot of noise. That's why we turn our music up during the daytime a little bit, not blaring so that every single unit in the building is going to hear it, because then we would be evicted, right, for causing a noise disturbance. You get enough complaints or unnecessary noise decibel point. So I came to a point where I said, okay, let's compromise. The flooring is creaky, so let's work with the situation. Don't walk across the floor where it keeps creaking in certain areas nonstop back and forth. Oh, yeah. He says, yeah, I know where it creaks and all the time. And so I said, okay, so probably not a good idea to keep walking on those areas constantly and, just keep it down. So I figured an understanding was made. Well, evidently not, because guess what? They went right back and did the same thing again. When you repeat and do the same thing again and again and again, what does that say, Neil?
That's called futility.
Futility.
When you do the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, it's called futility.
Exactly. And that's basically exactly what they've done. So it was brought to the management's attention where we phoned and complained about the tenant. And then the tenants phoned also. And I knew they were going to phone also. I just had that gut instinct. When you have that hindsight, you just know that something is just going to happen. Well, my intuition was yes. And so I had perceived that was going to happen. So I made a call, and then they made the call. Next thing you know, the manager shows up at the door. This is where it gets funny. The manager shows up at the door, bang, 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 like really loud. I'm like, okay, yep, that's the manager. I was eating breakfast at the time. And that was the day I think we were doing a podcast a little bit later on that morning. And I knew this was going to happen. So at the door, hello. And the manager's standing in the hallway, leaning against the wall. She goes, good morning. I go, oh, I said, I know why you're here. Okay, well, I have 2 complaints. Number one, the complaint was from the tenants upstairs complaining that you guys are making too much noise. Right, that's right. I said, because I know that's why you're here. I said, so this is what happened. I got a broom handle and I hit their ceiling. Bang, bang, bang. I said, did you hear that? Is that enough noise for you? I said, because you're making more noise than what we're causing for you. And she goes, oh, she's kind of started giggling at me. And I giggled back. And I said, but in reality, we only retaliated because they're causing us more noise. And they were laughing. The part that got us the most pissed off was the tenants were laughing. They thought it was actually funny that they were causing us a lot of noise. So I told the manager that, and she's like, yeah, okay. And we had every right. She said, you had every right to complain about them. But remember, this is an older building. The hardwood, the old laminate flooring creaks. I go, right. But it's only common sense that you work with the tenant and the other complaining tenant, and the other ones are causing the noise, work with it, right? And so the solution that they came up with was, hey, why don't you just move to another unit in the building when it comes available, or to another building that is available, and move up to the top floor so that you don't have anybody above you that you guys are going to be complaining about. I said, okay. So that's where that was. So this is my take on it. So move the innocent tenants that are not causing any problems, move them out of the equation, move them to a top floor of the current building, pay higher rent, or move you out of the building to another building and pay much higher rent.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, the problem tenants are still allowed to stay there.
Well, and the place that you vacated, if you do decide to vacate, they're just going to jack up the rent for there too.
Well, yeah. Well, that's what I said to the manager. I said, you would love us to move so you can crank up the rent.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, the problem tenant still stays. Yeah. So with that being said, is that there was another building we were looking at. The rent's over $1,800. I looked at the budget. I'm thinking there's no way. I mean, we could say we got a roof over our head, but how are you supposed to buy food, pay your bills, pay your tenant insurance, pay your hydro? I mean, every single thing based on the basics in life. It wouldn't happen. So the management says, okay, would that not work for you? Can we negotiate on the price? Because they had told us that, yeah, whatever is going to be fair for the tenant and us, we'll negotiate something. Well, guess what, folks? Nope, there was no negotiation. That was just something to basically put as appease us, saying, hey, this is what we can do for you. And then we felt surprised. No, we can't.
So something to shut you up for a while, basically over Christmas, I think, right?
Yeah, basically. Yeah. And now the units where at the other building, now there's 2 units now come available, not just one. Now there's 2 units, and the unit's still sitting vacant. So my philosophy on it is, hey, well, why not give some money to an owner where it's sitting vacant for 3 months now?
Yeah.
Is something better than nothing? So, they're taking a loss of over $1,800. So nearly times it by 3 months. That's a huge loss already. We're going to be going into the 4th month soon. So having it vacant, they're not making any money. So they can maybe take the money that we're paying here for rent, or maybe even top it up to the nearest $100. They're still going to be making a lot of money, maybe not as much as they want to make. So to me, it comes down to greed. It's just greed, right? I mean, they could sit vacant for a whole year. And what I see the crystal ball happening here, and this goes across the country, because I've been doing a lot of reading and research on it. There's a lot of places that are becoming more available for rent. Business, the corporate landlords are now hurting because they're charging way too much money for rent. They're seeing more incentives. 1 month free rent. Oh, we're going to give you a bonus, a gift card too, as an incentive, or 50% off your damage deposit. There's a lot of these happening, and over time, you're going to start seeing 2 months free rent, 3 months free rent, more incentives. Again, the rents are too high. Try to pull the person in. Well, now they got every other month. They're going to be paying high rent. If you can't afford to pay that rent now, how are you going to be able to afford to pay that rent going forward? Again, so now that stems into the Ministry of Social Development in BC.
Yeah.
Last year, 2024, there was no increase to our overall check. And I know some people are going to say, oh, here he goes about the rent portion, the shelter. Nope, I'm going to leave that out of the equation. I'm going to say the overall check, okay? Because the overall check, you pay your rent out of it. You pay
everything you have to pay out of it.
Everything's included in that.
Yeah.
So, and I want to see the government get rid of that word shelter altogether. Just get rid of it. It's archaic. It's old. Let's start 2025 with a new year. Let's refresh it, because what happens here, like last year in 2024, we got no increase at all. I got an increase for our rent. Again, this kind of goes back to a question to David Eby again. He never did ever answer the question, like, why did you not increase it? Our landlord gave us an increase and still asked the question. It wasn't even the question. It didn't come from me. And my manager always reminds me, saying, did David ever answer your question? I go, no, and he won't. I said, he won't answer it.
Yeah.
And it's just, well, that's wrong. I go, well, it is wrong. It's just, now, Brent, I wonder in 2025, you'll be getting a rent increase notice, but it won't be 3.5%. It'll be 3%. Now, will the government actually increase your rent? I said, so do you want to take a wager on this? Do you want to bet on that? I said, why don't we bet that our rent on that? So that if he says no, we get to have rent free for 1 year.
Yeah.
1 year. Just, I don't know about that. We could stay here rent free. I said, do you think they're going to give $2,400? As I said, you think they're going to give us $2,400? It's just the owner would never go for that to you to have rent free for a year. I go, so if they were to give us $2,400, then we would actually have to pay you an extra month of rent as a penalty. But in the other way, we'd get a whole year of rent.
Yeah. Well,
So
yeah, and you know what, Brent? I don't know what your next topic is going to be, but before you go off the topic of David Eby, that's kind of where I wanted to talk about. So if
I had a feeling that you probably did.
If we want to stay there for a moment,
Yep.
For people that live in BC like you and me, Brent, they'll be more aware of this. But so we have a lot of people that listen to us, back east or whatever. But this is still important because it has to do with the the integrity of our provincial voting system. Because again, for people that live in BC, you'll remember it's John Rustad just came forward a few days ago, claiming that there's been some voting irregularities with the elections BC. Oh. And there was one riding that flipped. It's the Surrey Guildford riding, and it was the Conservative candidate Honveer Randhawa, and he lost by 22 votes. This is the BC Conservative candidate. He lost by 22 votes. Now what? Votes. Yeah, and so now what John Rustad and this Randhawa is saying, he's a lawyer too, by the way. But you listen to him speak, and he's actually an amazing speaker. Like he's very you can just tell that he's very, very well spoken. So anyway, he's challenging the vote. It's not, I mean, some people can say, well, that's just sour grapes. You lost, now you're just being sour that you lost by 22 votes. But it's actually more than that, because one of the things, and again, I'm going to call to question David Eby's attitude, because let me just see. Like I said, I wrote some notes here. When it was, remember when we first had the election, it was only a one vote difference, right? And then they recounted, and then this riding flipped. This Surrey Guildford flipped. So now it went from a minority government to a majority by one vote. So this is why this riding is so important, right? And David Eby the other day came on camera and he said that John Rustad coming forward now to complain about this is cringe. He used the word cringe, and I'm thinking to myself, like, who says the word cringe? Like junior high students that are trying to act cool use the word cringe, and if you remember, again, back as as recently as October, right when the vote was cast, and they still weren't quite sure if it was going to be a one vote or two vote or whatever. David Eby said at that point, "Oh, we have to do a full investigation on the BC elections and make sure everything was legit." And of course, now that it's favorable to him, now that he's got the one vote majority, he's like, "Well, the truth of it doesn't matter." Just like
got counted at home.
Yeah, just like I always say about the pink unicorns. It was like, how the truth doesn't matter. It's kind of irrelevant. The truth only matters if it's convenient for the person. Like, one of the things that I hear all the time that really bugs me is when people say, "Well, I'm speaking my truth." When they say, I hate that, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. I understand when people say that, but like when you say I'm speaking my truth, it actually means that you're giving yourself creative license to lie. because there's not my truth and your truth, Brent. There really isn't. There's not my truth and your truth. There's actually just the truth. I mean, there's one truth. And that is why, I mean, again, I'm not going to make this a whole religious thing, but that is why I am religious, and that is why I am a Christian, is because I believe in one truth, you know, and that's a big reason why anybody is a Christian or religious, is because they believe in the possibility of only one truth. If you say there's multiple truths, you're lying to yourself.
One thing that I kind of wonder too is when they had the voting going in BC for the election, is people were showing up with no ID, and so they were voting with no ID. I don't know how that works. With no ID, you can't vote, and so there's a discrepancy of apparently a facility for individuals that were in there that were I guess allegedly voting that weren't eligible to vote. I don't know what's going on there with that. Of course, John Rustad's now looking into that. That was one issue. Another one that I also heard too was, and this kind of goes with different provinces too, where people will they'll show up to vote, but they actually weren't residents in that province until for 3 months. Once you're a resident in that province for 3 months, you can vote, and then after that, you can now move. You can now move away. So what are you going to vote just to favor the voting result? I kind of wonder. I mean, I guess legally, I guess you're allowed to, but is there an underlying reason why that's happening? And again, that's why the feds have been pushing for pro representation, right? Pro rep.
And there's a couple of things that I think just came to light today, actually. Like this is a fast moving thing. Like it's a moving target, this whole thing, right? And just today, I mean, when they announced it a few days ago, that they Rustad and this MLA Randhawa was saying, or he wanted to be the MLA, I should say, he's claiming there was 22 vote difference, but there was 45 irregularities, they call it, voting irregularities. And I'll get into that. And most of these irregularities had to do, as you said, with one kind of care facility. It's an addictions facility. So these are people that are recovering from addictions. We have to say that. And this facility is right across the street from a voting station. And you can say, well, why does that matter? I mean, if you want to mail in your vote, you should be able to mail in your vote, and that's fair. Except they've actually new evidence has come to light where they've actually proven now that there was a third person that was interfering with the mail-in vote. And what I mean by that is there is the manager. So this is kind of a two-pronged thing. There's this gets deep. This gets deep.
Oh yeah.
Brent. So the manager of the facility, she did a $1,400 donation to the BC Liberal Party. Just so happens that the manager of this facility donated $1,400 to the BC Liberals, and then she says that that these mail-in ballots just get delivered to our facility in bulk. Kind of these things get delivered to our facility, and then we administer them, or we hand them out to be vote and
for you.
And BC Elections has come back and said that is not how it works. We never have done that. They don't just send mail-in ballots by kind of bulk or whatever. They said they do these packages by individual basis only. So you, as an individual, every individual has to request a mail-in package. It's so the fact that the manager said that every year they have these mail-in ballots sent to them is a lie. So we're talking about truth and lie. So that is a lie when she says that these mail-in ballots came in and everybody just votes on these mail-in ballots. That is a lie because BC Elections has said they only send them on an individual basis where people have to request them individually. So the fact that there is even 22 mail-in ballots is kind of a head scratcher, right?
Yeah.
And then there's people that have come forward now saying that they were pressured to vote a certain way. People have come forward and say we were pressured to vote a certain way, and there's actually some people that have come forward and say, well, we didn't even know there was election, but we were given this ballot. We were given a ballot, so they didn't request it. They were given a ballot and said, mark an X here.
Oh, okay.
So there was a couple of people that didn't even know there was, and they were told, mark an X here. And then there was some that were pressured to put an X.
Oh, my.
So, so you talk about irregularities. Again, I think the point should be made is that when John Rustad had his news conference, he made very clear, I thought it was very clear, that one of the early questions was, well, why did you endorse the vote way back in October? You said you were fine with the vote way back in October. And he said, well, I wanted to have faith and confidence in our voting system. And he says, like, all these things kind of take time. When you kind of uncover something, he said, I didn't want to just be conspiracy theorists and just kind of be just saying stuff to like be a sour grape loser. He said, like, I needed to have enough proof, like hard proof, to say, hey, there might be something that happened here. And so when we say there's 45 irregularities, this isn't just some sort of pie in the sky that somebody just pulled out their hat and said, well, like, maybe we'll challenge this. Like, these 45 irregularities, voting irregularities that have been turned up are like hard and fast proofs now.
I wonder if the number is going to be even higher than that.
Well, and this is just what they've uncovered now. And this is what John Rustad actually alluded to a little bit. He said, that this is one facility where this has happened, but he says we've also gone around to other facilities now like that, and we've uncovered similar patterns.
Oh boy.
Of residents being pressured to vote a certain way.
Gonna get messy.
So so for David Eby to say, well, this is just sour grapes, he's just a bad loser, and it's cringe, when in fact John Rustad took his time because he doesn't want to be charged with saying, well, you're just being a conspiracy theorist. He wants to make sure that what he's coming forward with is hard and fast proof. And the same thing with the candidate, the conservative candidate, this Honveer Randhawa. And again, he's so well spoken, it's amazing. Anybody can look it up and listen to it, really well spoken. So when he was saying too, like, he doesn't want to be charged with this being conspiracy theorist. Like, his thing is like, I just want to get to the truth, because he says, I know that there are people that voted for me that wanted to see me in, get in and do the work, and so when I see there's 45 kind of irregularities or contraventions with the Voting Act. I mean, that's a problem when there was only a 22 vote difference.
That's huge.
It's we're talking, a big deal. So for David Eby to just brush it off because the truth is inconvenient for him, the truth is suddenly inconvenient, so I'm just going to ignore the truth. you know, like, and that's my problem with him for the last, you know, when he was Attorney General for 5 or 6 years. Like he was responsible. That was one of his sworn duties as an Attorney General, is to be an ambassador, if you want to call it that, an ambassador of the truth. And to just say, well, the truth doesn't matter. Pink unicorn. I'll believe in pink unicorns.
Yeah, like the one behind.
And I'll believe in conspiracies if the conspiracy suits me. As long as it suits me, as long as it's beneficial to me, I'll believe in pink unicorns and I'll believe in conspiracies. But God forbid that John Rustad believes in conspiracy, or he wants to source out the truth, because, you know, if he wants to source out the truth, if John Rustad wants to source out the truth, you know, that's irrelevant. Like, his truth doesn't matter. Like, again, it's like his truth versus my truth. What really matters is the truth, right? It's you know, David could say, well, my truth is that I won the election. You know. Yeah. But I mean, let's actually get to the real truth, not David Eby's truth, or not Rustad's truth. Just to get to the one actual truth of what actually happened. And right now, David Eby's saying, well, that's not convenient for me, and you know, and he's like saying it's cringe. You know.
Well, you know, during the election, I think there was like a new pilot project that was thrown out there for how the election was going this time around, where you could go to a different city, a different community, somewhere in the province, and vote there, even though you're not a resident in that city. You can vote there as long as you showed ID. But there were some people who maybe didn't have ID, so they say, okay, well, what is your address? Do you have any kind of other form of ID? And so they showed it, and I saw that happen. Somebody didn't actually have their photo ID, but they had a secondary or third piece of ID with their picture. Oh, okay. So they gave them their voting card as if they were in their voting writing. Yeah. And so they would mark it off, and I'll go in and mark it off an X on whatever you want, whichever party that you wanted to represent you. Or I mean, the MLA who was representing you, should we say, of that party. Now they rephrase that one. Yeah. So then you go through and they put it into their machine. Now you go back to your own writing area. By the time they got that information, that's advanced voting, right? So you go there. What does that go to say to stop the person from showing photo ID? Hi, I like to vote. So now you show your actual voting. Oh, yeah, you voted already. Maybe they know that, or maybe they don't. Now you're able to vote again.
Yeah.
There could be some discrepancies there, right?
And there was that was another proof that was proven, is that somebody did vote twice, and there was also cases of somebody going to vote and then they were told they went to vote and they were told, oh, I'm sorry, you've already voted, when they said, well, actually, no, I didn't.
Right.
You know, all this stuff. You know,
there's people who will mail them in, right? So they'll mail it in. They then can go to their voting area and say, I don't have my voting card with me. Oh, it's okay. Just get your ID. Vote again.
And this is what bugs me, is where, you know, the truth is not convenient. When the truth becomes not convenient, they can just say, well, it's not convenient for me, so I'm just going to ignore the truth. And that's been my thing about the whole thing about pink unicorns from day one. You know, so again, this Honveer candidate for Guildford, as I was saying, Sir Guildford. Yep. That's his thing, is that, you know, he's just trying to fight for the truth, and that's my whole thing too. Is that I just want the truth, and it's not. I'm not just saying it's not my truth. I'm not fighting for my truth. My truth. I'm fighting for the truth, because there's only one truth. There's only ever one truth. It's not, you can't say this is my truth, Brent, and you can't say, well, Neil, this is my truth. I mean, because then you're just giving your own version of a version of truth, but it's not actually the truth, right? And you know, maybe I'm belaboring the point too much, but I mean that's what really bothers me, is that governments can just play fast and loose with the truth and say, well, you know what, we'll only pay attention to the truth if it's convenient for us. You know, if it's not convenient, we'll just have pink unicorns running around. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
But you know, another part of my rant and rave, that I was going to mention here too is kind of maybe not order of exactly when I gave the sneak peeks of what I was going to talk about, but I'm going to throw it out there, and it kind of blends into about rents. I mean, everywhere in British Columbia is the most expensive place for rents. Ontario follows right behind it. The recent stats show that, I mean, rents are pretty well at par with British Columbia and Ontario. I mean, pretty close to me. Different communities, maybe a couple of dollars less, but they'll say, oh, they made the top score. And it's like a competition. They always say, BC, bring cash. Bring cash.
Yeah.
Well, what happens if your PWD check's not enough to cover your whole basic rent, let alone anything else? I mean, when I talk about rents, I mean, under the different management companies are going to charge different rents. It's never all the same. You're looking at the least amount, $1,800. If you're very lucky, you can find one at $1,600, but then it's run down. Why do I know? My corporate landlord told me. They have a list, and they're trying to compile a list right now of saying, hey,
it comes with pets.
It comes with pets. It's a bonus. There's no extra cost for you. So it's free of charge, folks. So, I mean, take it if that is in your budget.
And by pets, Brent, what do we mean? What do we mean by
when
pets?
we mean by pets, we've got mice, we've got rats, we've got cockroaches, we've got silverfish, we've got bed bugs.
No extra charge. No extra charge.
Yeah. I mean, if you are in an area where, hey, you like wildlife, I mean, you can get the birds flying by. They come right inside your balcony. Maybe you got deer that are in the area. Hey, I mean, they're harmless, but I mean, or maybe the cats running around everywhere. Maybe they'll chase the mice and the rats and the bed bugs. Maybe they're going to eat them all up. I don't know. Or maybe the deer will. But I mean, but the fact is, people unfortunately have to make sacrifices and ultimate hard decisions when they're moving into places because some management companies are very scrupulous. They can be really convincing where there's not a problem. Like, hey, there's no problem here. I go, I heard there's a history of a problem in this building. No, that's all hearsay. And then they move in, and guess what? Now they get trapped because now they're paying the high rent. Oh, you want to break your lease? Now you need to pay us a liquid damages clause, which is equal to the amount of 1 month worth of rent. In some cases, they'll charge you less than 1 month worth of rent. Not too many. Sometimes a $500 penalty. I mean, who has that money on PWD to go and fork that kind of money out? You can't even find anywhere to rent, let alone for a whole PWD check. Mm-hmm. That's disgusting. In a province that is supposed to be leading the country economically, say, well, BC, jobs. I mean, everything's is booming. We got all the jobs. I mean, what, public sector jobs or private sector ones? The last time I checked, there was a lot of small businesses shutting down.
Yeah.
And they are open. They have skeleton staff running the show. People are doing 2 or 3, 4 positions for the price of one employee.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, the jobs say, oh, well, the job numbers are up. And they run with that narrative. Oh, the jobs. I mean, I remember David.
Our public service is really, really booming right now. Our public service is really like a lot.
Oh, yeah. Well, they're making all these positions within every single country.
I can say that because I spent 7 years as a public servant, right? So I can afford to make that crack because I was part of that game for 7 years.
Yeah, I mean, and I was too. Like I worked for them for like 2 summers in a row doing that. It was like full time. I saw and I got to hear so many things. And of course I didn't know a lot about what was going on within government, but I saw a lot of errors where, I mean, a lot of wasteful revenue that didn't need to see happen. And then I moved into another permanent full-time for a couple of years doing other type of similar work. I mean, the pay was wonderful at the time. I was able to send my mom on a vacation. I was able to save up money and buy myself a whole bunch of new clothes. I was able to buy myself a mountain bike. I got it all decked out. I was able to do so many things, and I wasn't on disability assistance at the time. Oh, but as I became older, there was things that I found that I just couldn't do. I kept pushing myself, mind over matter, right? Mind says yes, body says no. I ignored it. I kept pushing and pushing because I was always brought up as, just pick yourself up, Brent, keep pushing forward. I think in most people they do that. They push themselves because they want to achieve so much. They want to be happy in life. And I guess with my moral, my story is, I want to see people happy.
Yeah.
I want to see. I mean, I want to be happy with myself, and I'm doing the best I can. I'm working with that, advocating to make change. But I also want the system to be rebooted, redone. Let's go forward as 2025 and beyond. Let's change the system so that everyone can be happy on disability. Let's bring back the pensions, right?
Let's make it equitable. Let's make it equitable.
Yeah, let's make it equitable. I mean, let's bring back the pensions that they were back in the mid 1990s. I mean, how can you change a pension into a non-pension? There was a story that I was reading just recently where my jaw dropped. I could not believe that the government would be so critical on something so frivolous. I mean, you're talking about Pokemon.
Oh, Pokemon cards, yes.
Pokemon cards, everyone.
Yeah.
So somebody had some Pokemon cards. I mean, maybe they might have been sentimental to them, but maybe their situation was they needed some extra money. I mean, because the government refused to increase the rates in 2024. Cost of living is going up. Everyone knows that across the country, around the world right now, cost of living going up, right? There's so many dynamics of why the cost of living is going up. So the government has a responsibility to take care of their own citizens, right? But no, they like to pass the buck over to the federal. So anyway, getting back to Pokemon. Okay, so somebody had some Pokemon cards. They sold them. They needed the revenue. So they declared it on their statement, their monthly statement when they have employment income.
Mistake number one.
Yeah, mistake number one.
Mistake number one.
So they declared
never declare.
Yeah, so they declared it as other income Pokemon cards. All right, the worker says, oh, that's unearned income. We're gonna take dollar by dollar off you. Now that amount exceeded their monthly check. So guess what? They got no check.
No check. Yeah.
No check for you. Instead of no soup for you, no check for you. Why? All they wanted was to make a few dollars. So what is the difference between, I mean, really, does it make any difference? It's employment, it's Pokemon cards. I mean, come on, seriously. I mean, somebody wants to make some money. Maybe they were trying to save up to buy an apartment freezer, or maybe their fridge broke down because their management company refuses to fix their fridge, or maybe their stove broke down. Maybe they need to buy an appliance. I mean, so they're trying to make their life better, and they get punished for trying to make their life better. I see a complete flaw in that. Miss Malcolmson, you really need to change the system. Bill 7 needs to be redone. The regulations in there, it needs to be redone. Okay. I think that you need to be working with the Green Party, right? The Green Party in BC. Technically, you don't have to because you have a majority government. And this goes to David Eby too. You don't have to, right? But there was an agreement where the Green Party said they want to bring the rates up to $2,400 increase. So now they're now relying on the Green Party to saying, hey, please, can you please help us, keep us in power? Now the Green Party says, okay. So that $2,400, I noticed as in their campaign, it kind of quietly disappeared. Not fully disappeared, but it's kind of put on the back burner saying that, yes, the rates will work with it, but only when it's economically sound, or I'm not finding the right word, Neil, on that one, but maybe it's economically feasible.
Feasible, I think is the right
word. And so what I see going forward when it comes to rates, right? I see that $2,400. I would be shocked if they actually increased our rates by $2,400 on top of what they are now, which are $1,483.50. Okay, the base amount. If there's $2,400 on top, I'd be shocked. Now I'm thinking $50.
That's my vote too. Is $50.
Yeah, because nothing was in 2024. They ignored it. The government said, yeah, we gave $125 the year before in 2023. That should be good enough. But we gave it to some, but not all. But good enough, right? I mean, but yeah, you don't need increase
because who needs a system of equity anyway?
Who needs an increase? I mean, costs have been going
equity,
up.
Spequity. Yeah.
Yeah. They would say, you just need to budget better. You just need to not pay your rent. Don't pay your rent. I mean, and then you have more money, and then you could be homeless, and now you'll qualify for BC housing. But now you have a 12-year waiting list minimum. Actually, there was one individual who had commented on our last podcast who waited 12 years.
It was Peter, and he's in chat. Peter. He's in chat today too.
Oh, Peter.
It was Peter's last comment on the last video. Yeah.
Yeah, 12 years. I mean, as an example, Peter, I mean, you waited 12 years. I heard that the waiting list is over 20 years.
Now it is, yeah.
Yeah, and so you have to.
So maybe he should consider himself lucky that it was only 12 years. Yeah.
Well, BC Housing admitted to me, and I was just beyond pissed off. Actually, I wanted to say more words to them, but I kept my mouth shut. I zipped it. Because the language when it came out of my mouth, they would not have wanted to hear it. They would have hung up the phone on me. They said you had to be homeless, you had to be fleeing violence, your building had to be sold or condemned. So I can't just go in from market housing to BC housing because I want to have cheaper rent. Nope, doesn't work that way. The system is not designed that way. I said, oh right, the system is working. I said the system is working perfectly fine because you guys designed it
as intended.
Yeah. And he goes, I'm not sure what you mean. I go, no, you know what I mean. He goes, so you have to be homeless in order to get that. Yeah, that's wrong. I mean, so why not just apply it to all PWD based on the individual in their household, not household income.
Yeah.
And I think we get more people housed. My motto is get people housed, not unhoused. I know there's been some talk across the country, and I'm not going to go with that narrative because it'll just get dogpiled right on. I think people want to have cheaper rent. I think it's about holding the corporate landlords to account. But you go to your local mayor's office. Go to your local MLA. If you're in Ontario, go to your MPP, members of Parliament or MP. Go to their constituents or their offices. I mean, a peaceful presentation. And there's nothing wrong with peaceful rallies. I mean, yeah, we've got prominent MLAs and MPs and MPPs who've gone to rallies themselves to stand up for what they believe in, right? And one of our former finance ministers, she used to talk about that a lot, Neil. Carol James, she talked about that a lot, about standing up for democracy, standing up for yourself. She went to lots of rallies over time. John Horgan did that same thing. He told me he went to lots of rallies and protests. I'm like, really? He goes, oh, yeah. Because it's about advocating, he says. I mean, everybody advocates. I mean, it's not a new word, Brenty.
Well,
Him and I talked about these things.
And I think maybe what we should do is we can close out the show with the one other thing that I wanted to talk about today. And because it kind of dovetails into everything we're talking about, really, is... there's this case of Florence, and I have the last name too, but I don't know if I should if it really matters. So I'll just use the first name. There's this woman Florence. She had Down syndrome, and this case goes back to October of 2018. So this is like over 6 years now. You have this woman, Florence. She has Down syndrome. She was being cared for by a care aide, and this Florence was found dead in her apartment from basically starvation and malnourishment. And we recently had Tamara Taggart on, and she was on the video clip. You shared the video clip with me. Yes. That this whole case is being revisited again because back in October of 2018 there was no charges laid. Right. Like she was this care aide was able to just walk free like it was some sort of mercy killing, right? And I mean, people can balk at that harsh term maybe, but that's the reality, is that a lot of people have this
Despicable.
they have this mindset where it's like, well, if it's a disabled life, it's not worth living. So the fact that
The mindset.
yeah, it's a mindset, and it's just like, well, it's almost like the ruling was like, well, this Carried was kind of doing this Florence a favor, like, by ending her life. It was kind of a mercy killing, like I said. I mean, I hate to say it, but that is kind of the attitude, right?
I know.
I mean,
she wanted to live. She just wanted the help.
Yeah, this is a person with Down syndrome. I mean, lots of people with Down syndrome can live a perfectly good, productive, happy life, and to have this kind of judgment where a person with a disability has a lesser life or a lesser deserving life than somebody that doesn't have a disability, and somehow that your actions don't matter. Like if you actively do harm, if you actively do harm to another person that has a disability, well, that doesn't matter because their life doesn't matter anyway. So who? I mean,
Terrible.
I hate that those words are coming out of my, like.
I know.
Trust me, Brent. I hate what those words are coming out of my mouth. But
Me too.
I mean, that's the truth,
yeah.
though. It's the truth.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. It really is. It's disgusting.
I worked many years ago with a young lady who had Down syndrome. A wonderful, wonderful person. She worked hard, as hard as she could, on the tasks that she was asked to go and do. And I witnessed it many times. I felt, what do I say? What do I say to speak up? Like, I'm kind of tongue tied of what I'm saying here, is because my jaw dropped of witnessing an employer who hired her because of a person with disabilities who had Down syndrome, who then went behind her back and said, well, she's disabled. She doesn't know any difference. I mean, like, what difference does it make? Maybe I should have not wasted my time. And I overheard that. I overheard the employer said, why am I wasting my time? I don't have time to cater to a person with disabilities. I came forward. I was livid, Neil. I was beyond livid. I thought, okay, Brent, learn what you were taught in college. Learn to speak up. Learn what your instructor taught you to do, and come forward and say, if you don't agree with something and you don't believe in that, like, come forward and say what you need to. I actually took the courage and came forward. And you know what the employer said to me? One more word that comes out of your mouth, sir, you're going to be fired. I will fire you.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, you know what? I said, okay, then you know what? You're going to fire me? Okay. So I said, be respectful for people with disabilities. I said, do not talk behind their back. If there's something that you need to say it to their face. I said, so you know what? I said, right. Oh yeah, I embarrassed the employer. I said, so you know what? I'm going to go and get Samantha right now. And I'm going to bring Samantha over here, and you can actually go and talk to her in front of me. Excuse me, I'm the employer. I go, excuse me, who is the adult here? Who is the employer? I said, I'm the employer because I'm actually the one who's speaking up. Oh yeah, the guy goes, you know what? You can go out the room. I said, I'm not going until this is going to get resolved. I brought the girl forward. She had tears in her eye, and you know what she said to me? Thank you, Brent. Thank you for being the employer and being the adult here and dealing with this effectively. I go, no, I mean, don't thank me. I'm just speaking up. I'm just saying the right thing that needs to be done. I said, it's all about respect.
I've been told to quieten down so many times.
Me too.
So many times. It's like, stop talking, Neil. Like, literally, it's like, go away. You're bothering us with the truth now. Like, like I've said, or like that was my big thing about, talking about truth and getting to the truth of the election. I mean, I'm all about truth, and when somebody can say, well, the truth doesn't matter if it's not convenient, that's a problem. That's a problem for me. I'm sorry, that's a problem.
Yeah, there was a segment that was on the news just recently. I was trying to find the article, and I was going to share it with you so we could talk about this today on the show, the Rant Rave. if I find it, we'll talk about it on the next podcast. But Sonia had brought it to my attention. She goes, "Yeah, you should talk about it." Well, I was trying to find the article. It was on Global News, but for some reason I can't find it. Normally they post things like that out, but it was all about Sonia. What was the headline of it? It
was on Sunday morning news.
Okay. But what was the
jobs?
It was about jobs. It was about a kind of a, not a seminar, but it was all about hiring people with disabilities, about of all the unemployment, the area of the unemployment of how industries have not tapped into of the disability segment of the population. And it's that narrative, like it was a narrative that kind of got spun out. And I got thinking about that. I thought, well, you know, that's great. That's great if a person's able to do certain things, but what if they're not? What if they're not? That's why they need that basic income. They need that basic floor that's there. And Tom, the basic income guy, he talks a lot about that. And Joseph Vandermeer, he talks about that too. There's a lot of people who talk about basic incomes, right? Or at least bring the disability assistance. I call it pensions because that's what my doctor referred to it as, pension.
Yeah, well, they used to be.
But he thought it was.
Yeah. We're asking people, how are people getting by with disability?
Oh, okay.
And some of them are saying most of them are working.
Okay, so I'm not sure if you heard that, what Sonia just said, but they asked people with disabilities how they're getting by. And most of them that they asked, and I guess in a questionnaire, was most of them said they're getting by. But that's only, now that's like a polling, right? Of saying, well, I could do the same thing in my building. Okay, like say 100 people in my building, say, okay. Actually, it's more than 100. There's like 150 people in my building, but say 150 people. Now, I did a stat, and I actually asked, 75% of them. So now that's 75% of the 150. Well, actually, no, sorry, that's 50%. 50% of the 150. So that's 50%. But they could say, oh, yeah, no, we're doing perfectly fine. What about the other 50%? Right? What about the other 50%? Well, no, they're actually living well below the poverty level. I could ask seniors, well, how are you doing? They'll say, well, I have a disability, but according to the government, I'm not disabled anymore. I said,
poof.
Oh, did your disability go away? And I actually had a discussion just yesterday with a senior who lives about 3 roads down from here, and I've never seen him before. And I was talking to him about, we were talking about healthcare. And he says, well, I have to buy my medications, and some of them are not covered, and they used to be covered. I said, what do you mean used to? Well, he says, when I had my disability status, but when now, because I'm a senior, I don't get all those things covered. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm low income, right? I'm on a fixed pension now. I said, oh, so your disabilities just disappeared? He goes, no, they never disappear. I said, I'm just being my sarcasm. Went there, and he goes, oh, okay, I wasn't sure where you're going there, bud. And I said, no, I said, I'm just telling you, like, we talk about this on my podcast.
Yeah.
He goes, so yeah, I said about pink unicorns. I said, poof, like they disappear, right? Yeah. Magically. He goes, well, the government wants to magically disappear, right? And it's a narrative. And I said, how do you make it by? He says, well, if I didn't have Safers, I don't know what I would do. And Safers is a senior supplement. If the listeners are wondering what I'm talking about, is it's a subsidy program that allows seniors to live independently, or if they need have a caseworker who comes in and helps them if need be, to help them on their day-to-day living in their own residence. They don't have to move out of where they're living. And I can vouch for that because my mom lived in her home. She never had to move, but she got to have that. Now, PWD, we don't get to have that in market housing or any kind of housing. Like if you live in a house or a basement suite, anywhere outside of BC housing, you do not qualify because you get that PWD shelter designation under your actual check. So again, if that was taken out of the equation, and that's why this year I'm going to push that narrative, and I'm not going to stop. because that needs to be taken right out. Now PWD will now qualify. If you take that out, we now qualify for that subsidy. BC Housing even told me that, because that's actually part of the criteria. PWD, when that designation was put in once upon a time, it was actually put in there for people who lived in like a care area, like they were put into like a what do they call it? Those ones in Vancouver on the east side, where they
I know,
SROs.
Yeah.
Those were classified as like kind of like a subsidized kind of housing, but they were branched off of BC Housing once upon a time. And I don't think that the government really thought of that maybe PWD wanted to live in market housing going forward. So they left that old archaic system going, where people would move into a basement suite, maybe they moved in with, I don't know, their parents, which is not always the case. Maybe they don't have parents to move in with, so now they have to move into precarious housing. And I want to see the system changed. So we can't rely on the federal government. No, BC and other provinces do not rely on the federal government.
Well, and the fact is, let's talk truth and fact.
About the CDB.
Let's talk truth and fact again, though, Brent. I mean, the provinces have wanted it this way.
Oh yeah.
Since the dawn of time. Like if the provinces have asked, they're the ones that asked the federal government, stay out of it. We want to have control over giving out the our social programs.
That's right.
Give us the responsibility. You stay out of it, federal government. Give it to us. So they're the ones that have said we want the responsibility, and yet they're screwing it up.
Well, exactly, and that's exactly what they did. Like in BC, I'll use BC as an example because we live in BC. And what they've done is that they've reached out to the federal government and saying, well, this is what they've told me. They said they wouldn't give a dollar amount. They said they would not give a dollar amount, but they were assured that, yes, it's going to go to all PWD in Canada, and it's going to be adequately enough. Well, adequately enough. Well, that was what was said then. Then, of course, the narrative changed over time. Now I think it's like egg in the face to the government because now it backfired. Now they're damage control. They don't know what to do. The BC government and all the other governments, they don't know what to do because the feds have totally screwed this CDB up. I mean, worse than a little child going to a candy store and getting one of those little candies and going, oh, it's good. No, don't do that. That's bad. No, you can't take that off the candy shelf.
But it just seems the whole dynamic or dichotomy is just weird, Brent, because like we said, I mean, the provinces are all waiting around for the feds. But again, if we talk about truth, like it's the provinces from the very beginning, from the dawn of time, have said, stay out of it. We want to have control and autonomy over all of this. And so they were given that autonomy and responsibility, and now they're pointing fingers at the federal government and saying, look what you're doing, and they're absolving themselves of all their sins, all the provincial sins that have gone on. They're absolving themselves of everything, saying, Well,
I mean, and then of course, they're saying, oh, this CDB is going to be historic. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to help over 1 million people originally, and then it went down to 600,000, and then it went down to 25,000, and now it's going to be $200 up to $200 based on household income only if you have a DTC. And Mike Morris had got the confirmation originally saying, nope, it's not going to be part of the criteria. They said fine, no problem. And then they changed it and they went against what Mike had was told. And I mean, all these barriers put in place. Give me the big scissors. I'll cut all that red tape, all that shit out of there. I'll cut all that red tape out and give it to everybody at the amount that she had said you were going to originally come out with. It was supposed to be when we had the COVID amount out there for people, $2,000 was supposed to be the most minimum amount and that was the basic amount. That's not even including your shelter or your rent amount. That's not including the food amounts. That's not calculated into that formula. That was based on just your basic goods and services, $2,000.
We're not accounting for the 40% markup of the crip tax.
Exactly.
Right? We're not accounting for that. Yeah.
When that came out in 2020, now we're in 2025. Yeah. So now that amount equivalent is like $2,800. That's not including people with disabilities or your, extra amounts that people with disabilities need as an ongoing amount going forward. And that's not even including your rent amount. That's not including your food costs, your basic essentials. So that amount, should be on top of your disability amounts. And so the government now has gone from that down to up to $200 per household. Like a 2-year-old could do math better than that.
Yeah.
Really, like seriously, folks. Like, I know that the federal government, they realize they screwed up. And I always say, when you screw up, just admit that you screwed up, that you must change it and do better. And that goes with provinces too. Hey, they say, hey, look, I'm sorry, I messed up, I must do better. And I had an MLA, Dan Davies, had said to me one time, look, our government screwed up, and I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry. Personally, we must do better. How hard is it for governments to actually say that? I had that person said to me that, I'm sorry, Brent. I'm really sorry. We must do better.
Well, and again, I always like to, as a parent, as a parent, I always like to kind of draw on the fact that I'm a parent. And as a parent, you're always saying, like, it's important if I tell my son to do something, I have to also walk the walk. When I talk the talk, I have to walk the walk too. I can't just say, well, that only applies to you. Like what I'm telling you to do, I don't have to listen to it. Like, I always make sure what I'm telling my son to do is that I hold myself to the exact same standards. Whatever I tell my son is like, that's what I hold myself to a standard of too. And I guess that's one of the things that I don't like about David Eby is like, he's one of these, like, do as I say, not as I do. And I can tell you, as a parent, I don't operate that way. It's like, if I'm telling you to do something, I'm holding myself to those same standards. I don't have two standards. I don't have a standard for Jake, my son, and the standard for me is totally different. The standards I hold are the same that I pass on to my son, and they're the same. And so
that's what it comes down to, like, certain standards. I want to see governments going forward. I want to see a basic standard put in place where your basic needs are being met. Your rent is being met. Okay, and I have different ideas on how to conquer the corporate landlords. Right now, there's such a shortage on subsidized housing for PWD. My belief is that people should be able to live where they want to live, not just where the government tells them where they should live in the community that they want to live in. Because you have to have one or two choices, right? And if that housing doesn't work for you, well, then you've got the second chance. After that, that's it. So I always say that people should be able to live in the housing where they live. So I'll give an example. If where I'm living right now, I'm going to be wanting to move. Okay, Neil, you know what's going on there. I talked about at the beginning of the podcast, but again, I move out of here. I'll be paying even much higher rent. My corporate landlord would love it if I moved out of here. They can make a lot of money. They'd be cracking open the champagne. Brent, please move. We want to make more money. There's talk about vacancy control. Yes and no. I'm kind of tossed on it because, yes, it could be a good thing. But however, it could be also a bad thing. It could backfire on tenants because corporate landlords are still going to want to maintain their profit level. Because they're stakeholders, they're investors, they want to have their rate of return, right? And that's why rents keep going up. They want to get you out so they can crank it up and make them happy. And then people say, oh my God, the rents are high. Well, you ask a corporate landlord, are you doing okay? Yeah, fine, yeah. And they do a poll. What I want to see is something the corporate landlords held accountable. I know that the provinces talk about it, saying, "Oh, corporate landlords. Oh, yeah, they terrible, terrible." Federal government, same thing. Terrible corporate landlords. Well, there's ways of dealing with it. I mean, you lower down your property taxes, and you make a compromise. You say, "Okay, I'm going to lower down the taxes." Now, in comparison, as an agreement, you're now going to keep the rents now down to this level, and you're going to rent it out for this level. Oh, you don't want to do it? Well, then there's a problem here, right? Yeah. So you want to do business in BC or any other province, you need to comply by certain regulations. If you can't comply, we're going to shut you down. I think there's, I'd like to get into another show on that, actually. If there's a guest that would love to come on and knows more about how corporations work about rents, please reach out to Neil. We'll get you scheduled in, because I would really love to dive into this, because I have different ideas, but I'm not an expertise when it comes down to that. I live the experience. I'm living through this hell. I mean, like I say, hey, you can move to another building. You can pay this much. I go, well, I can't afford that. Well, in other words, okay, well then shut up, Brent. Don't bitch and complain to us. Put up with the noise. Well, no, why should I have to? Then I reached out to the residential tenancy branch in BC. They're in a position where they cannot give advice. They are neutral. They are neutral from all levels. They told me on a personal level, I told them this situation. They told me, your management company is in business to run a building. Okay, they're probably running on behalf of the owner. Okay, there sounds like a company that's running on behalf of the owner. I go, yes, okay, and then most of them are, right? So it comes down to that they have to be held accountable. In order to hold them accountable, you can take them to arbitration. I said, well, if I do that, I said, that would be a problem. I said, I'll get a good reference. Not necessarily. Be careful, because that's a murky water. You rock the boat. You don't want to not have a good reference from where you rent. We're just quiet people. I said, but they need to be held accountable, and they want us to move. They said, well, of course. They said, but the rental go up. They of course they love that, right? So I'm looking at it as I just kind of ride it out and not ruffle the feathers, and just look for another opportunity. Rents are not lower. One thing before my rant and rave session ends here, I want to also see they call it moving supplement. There's a moving supplement in BC. I'm not sure about other provinces. Anyone watching this, you can tell me how it works in your province. But I'll take that in 1 second, Sonia. She showed me there was a call that came in while I was on air. I have a feeling I know who it was. It wasn't. Actually, she showed me something else. But yeah, that's fine. I can look at that later. So you know what it is, Neil? Yeah. It's a magic number.
Unicorn.
It's a magic unicorn number. Yeah. But anyway, getting back to that, my train of thought was on where was I? Hang on.
Maybe it's time to end the show, Brent.
No,
you're flustered, maybe.
Landlords. Oh yes, it was where I was. Anyway, I'm just gonna end it there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just end it.
Just end it. Okay.
Okay.
Rant and rave, and that's why, because there's so much to rant and rave about.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look forward to people tuning into our part 4 another time.
I mean, this is why I labeled it, part 1, part 2, part 3, because it's
remember.
Ongoing.
I do remember. Yes, it was about moving supplement. Moving supplement.
Oh, yeah, right.
Moving supplement.
Yeah.
This is the way I'm going to end the podcast for today. Okay. The moving supplement in BC, if rents are substantially reduced, we will move you. But you need 3 quotes from moving companies. Get this: substantially reduced rent.
Yeah.
What planet is this?
What does that even mean, Brent?
Is this Earth number 2? Are we on another planet?
We're talking about unicorns again, Brent.
I don't know who would have came up with that terminology.
It's all unicorns. Yeah.
I just couldn't believe it. I was just anyway. That's my rant. Ends that. They got to get rid of that part out of there. Give me the pen. Give me the pen. Give me the code. I'll get in there and change it myself.
Yeah.
Damn it all. thank you
Yeah,
everyone.
so I just want to again tell people that we are working hard behind the scenes, getting more guests. The next guest on tap is going to be Cheryl Hardcastle, so I'm really looking forward to that on Friday the 17th. Definitely tune in for that one, and there's a lot of really good guests that are potentially on tap soon, so keep an eye out for all that.
Yeah, most definitely. You know, I love having new guests onto the show. This year we're looking at really high-end, prominent guests. I mean, we're going to have other guests joining us too that have come on before, but this year's focus is to really get the big fish.
Get the big fish,
big fish. You come onto the show because I want our big fish to hear about the lived experience stories that we've gathered up over the years and present them going forward. And I can tell you about lived experience stories myself. Neil can. I mean, we all live it. I want to see the system changed going forward, making making people happy. I mean, that's what I want to see is people happy. People not living in legislative poverty. We need to put a freaking end to that garbage, right? There's no need for that in Canada, in BC, any province. Please leave your comments regarding about moving supplements. I'm really curious about people's take on that. There's also, I'm going to squeeze in one little topic. I heard in Ontario, there's some corporate landlords are requiring first month and last month rent.
Oh, wow.
Not sure what's going on there. In BC, we don't do that here. I've never gone through that. When I've been hearing about last month's rent, I don't get that. If somebody can maybe kind of fill me in on that, because that'd be something that I can now do more research into and hold those corporate landlords to account, because that's BS. Like they shouldn't be getting away with that at all. So, but anyway, thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. You want to be a guest on the show, please reach out, prominent guest. Yeah, we'll work with it the best way we can and see what we can do.
Like, share, subscribe, buy us a coffee.
Yes, click the like button down there, and you'll see the dollar sign. And thank you.
Cheers, everyone.
Double.